Hi, I'm Beate Gegenwart and I'm originally from Germany, and I've been living in the UK or in Wales for over 40 years, I would say. And my workshop is on the Gower Peninsula outside Swansea, 5 minutes from the sea. I started as a ceramicist and have an MA in ceramics. And then I started also teaching, and I've been teaching for over 30 years. And because I didn't have much time in my full-time job to do ceramics, it's a very lengthy process. I did another MA in Bristol, multidisciplinary printmaking, and I was introduced to enamel. And it was absolutely wonderful. Just that exact same feeling of using the kiln, having the fire, and the technologies are very similar because enamel is glass on metal, but it's essentially a glaze. So I feel very passionate now about enamel. And again, I would say I've worked since about 2006 with enamel. My inspiration for my work comes from my personal circumstance. I moved countries, so I also moved languages. I'm bilingual. So the foundation or the concept in my work is very much spaces in between movement. It is the actual movement between countries, between languages. I seek out architectural spaces which give me that sense of borders or non-borders and the spaces in between. So for instance, in one project was in Paris, the Passage Couvert, and Walter Benjamin's Passagen project. So I spent quite a lot of time in Paris taking photographs, drawings, and that has influenced quite a lot of my work because the Passage Couvert are spaces where the activities of the outside take place but on the inside, and those spaces fascinate me. And the same applies to spaces in Italy, the arcades, where you have a sunlit piazza, and then you have the shaded walkways, and again there's the movement in and out. The way I work, a project always starts with reading. So for instance, for the Passage Couvert, I read Walter Benjamin, and then I also do take a lot of photographs. And to maybe be quite specific about a project is I curated an exhibition called With Other Eyes, and I was questioning in that project what importance does photography have for the applied artists, because applied artists, we are all passionate about making, about using our hands, but very often we also use photography. So what is the position of photography in our work? So I think there are some examples behind me where this for instance is a digital photographic collage of the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele in Milan, which again is an arcade, and then some of the arcades, I think Bologna. So I investigated how you could use photography in your work, and that led to work which I hadn't done before, which is actually etching photographic images into metal. But then also it had a wider development into other pieces. So it starts off with photography, and then I will draw. So everything I know that I want to have cut, either cut or etched, I've moved on to etching now, and to etch right through. All those lines would actually start life as a drawing, so it would be a drawing on paper. And then I either redraw it digitally or I use another method to actually get a digital file for cutting. And then from then I develop my pieces, and then everything, before I commit to metal, everything will be cut with a laser, because I need to work out what is the composition. Is the composition right? Is the scale right? So I do work with paper. I don't actually use paper as something in itself, which is possible. I have made some books, because a book is again a repository of thought and ideas. So I have made some artist books, but I haven't actually used paper as artworks themselves. So really, so the cutting is only a development stage, and then I commit to metal. I think all through my development or my career as an artist, I have been passionate to include the digital technologies in my work. There is just a curiosity there, and I would like the digital technologies to melt absolutely natural with a handmade. So for me, the digital is just another tool, or another medium. As I said before, it is a tool in that sense that I can maybe cut something to test out ideas and then do it again, do something slightly different. Or as a medium, if I wanted to have it laser cut, to have the metal laser cut or water jet cut, and then in which case it becomes a medium. Or for the books, if I use paper in the books. I am passionate and very curious about the digital, and I think that will continue. That included 3D printing. And also I'm a ceramicist by background, and so I worked with 3D form. And I think that urge to work in 3 dimensions actually doesn't go away. So when there was an opportunity to apply for one of the very early residencies to explore 3D printing, I applied and I got it, and it was so very interesting, and I loved it, and I did quite a lot. Now I'm at the stage where I want to find my voice slightly differently in the 3D printing, and it's on my list of things to do, because I want to bring everything together. So I would like to bring enameling together with 3D printing, but then cast. So it has to be 3D printed in wax. So I'd like to bring my processes together, from etching, 3D printing, all these things, and with enameling. So that's my next stage. The bowls arose again from a connection going back to my background in ceramics, but also I was invited to an exhibition in America, which was absolutely lovely, at Springfield Museum with amazing artists. And the project was the holding space, it was called, and it was about the enamel vessel and bowls. So that then kicked me off, and it was a real pleasure to work on that exhibition, because they gave us 2 years run-up time, which is very rare. So in 2 years you can really make a new body of work. So these bowls were specifically for Springfield. I think to just briefly come back to my favorite tool, which is the laser, and the question of whether it's a tool or a medium, and I said it is both. I use it in different layers, so it would be a development tool. Then it becomes a medium when, say, for instance, a steel is being cut. But then also I use it as the last layer after enameling, because the laser has got the most beautiful fine line, which no other tool can do. So, and I tend to work in black and white. So after the white is abraded back, enamel is shiny, so you have to abrade it back to become matte. I often engrave another design into the enamel, cutting through the white, revealing the black underneath. So again, it's both, you know. So I go from tool to medium to tool, and I must say I love the laser. It's my favorite tool. I'm forever curious. And I continue reading and I continue traveling. So there are always new influences emerging. And I think particularly through the pandemic, you know, there were maybe sometimes things I couldn't do. So I feel passionate about enameling, and I love enameling, and this is probably my happy space. And then sometimes you have to cut your cloth and you can't. So I started to actually find patination of metals absolutely fascinating, brilliant. Just as an example, you can get wonderful colors. So now, of course, I just would really love to bring those two things together with matte enamel and patination. So I think that's my next task, to try and bring it together, but large. I really want to work large. I'm not a jeweler, and I'm aiming for larger and larger. I love the bowls. I will continue to do them. Again, I want to become larger and larger. I want to have to work with copper, and also the large bowls in copper, which should be stunning, with heat-treated surfaces and enamel. So it continues. But again, I just would like to say that for me, it is always the concept that underlies it. So I'm not just going to make bowls, or I'm not just going to make shapes. It has to be based on reading and an investigation, so there has to be more to it. Then it's not a pattern. You know, it actually, has to have a meaning.